Obviously, no one knows exactly how the upcoming 2025 NFL season is going to play out, but there's a saying as old as time: Vegas always wins. Earlier this week, sportsbooks dropped a bunch of futures for this upcoming season. All these lines are based on advanced analytics, trends, and the general public consensus. So this had me thinking, how does Vegas expect the season to go based on all these betting odds? Again, no one can predict the future, but sportsbooks are not going to lose billions of dollars just throwing out whatever for the public to bet on. I've looked at every team's set win totals, Super Bowl odds, season awards odds, and much more. And in this video, we're going to find out how the 2025 NFL season is expected to unfold based on all this data. So let's hop right in. So the way we're going to structure this video is we're going to go through each division, starting with the AFC and then moving on to the NFC. We're going to look at what sports books expect these divisions to end as, who will be first place through fourth place, and what each team's expected records are. And then from there, we'll look at season awards. I'm going to do MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, all that jazz. And then we'll look at the runner-ups based on the betting odds. And then finally, we'll look into the playoffs and who Vegas thinks will be crowned as the Super Bowl 55 champion. So with all that out the way, we'll start here with the AFC North. So this is a really competitive division, we know. We typically see at least two teams make it out this division, at least in the last couple of years. And no surprise here, Vegas has the Ravens winning this division, being the first place team with an 11-6 record. So that means the Ravens are back in the mix of being a Super Bowl contender. Lamar Jackson's probably having a great year, and that's that. And then we move on to the second place team in this division, according to the books, Cincinnati Bengals. So I would expect if the Bengals end the year 10-7, obviously Joe Burrow's healthy. The offense is firing on all cylinders. But I also think this means that their defense has to be a lot better, especially if they're finishing with a 10-7 record. And we'll see. Hopefully that's enough for this team to make the playoffs, and according to the books this year. Third place, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Mike Tomlin with another 8+ win season. I mean, the Steelers still don't have a quarterback. We don't know if they're grabbing Aaron Rodgers, trading for Kirk Cousins, or just riding out with Mason Rudolph. But I think this makes sense. And then fourth place, the Cleveland Browns, 6-11. Personally, I think 6-11 is being a little generous here, considering their schedule that just dropped this week. They have a really rough stretch to start the year, heading into the bye week. Their first 6 weeks potentially could be all losses. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be good next year, who's going to be bad, but just going based on last year and this current roster construction. But another thing to add is we're not going to see teams with less than 4 to 6 wins on this simulation, because Vegas doesn't really tend to predict teams to go like 2-15, and on the contrary, they don't really predict teams to go like 15-2. So we're going to see, I think, a range between 4 and 13 wins. Next, we move on to the AFC East. So the Buffalo Bills, no surprise here. I think this division definitely runs through the Bills. Bills fans and Josh Allen, super hopeful last year to get that Lombardi trophy, but there's a familiar foe in this conference that's always in the way. And we'll get to them here in a sec. Second place, we got the New England Patriots. So this one really surprised me. This has the Patriots jump into a 9-8 season. Interestingly enough, sportsbooks currently have the Patriots favored in 11 out of their 17 games entering the season. So Vegas expects the Patriots to be competitive and better. That means Drake May's probably taken a step forward this season. That means they had a really good draft, and this draft class is doing its thing. That means Vrabel coming as head coach is changing the culture of this team. So as a Patriots fan, that's got to make you happy, seeing sportsbooks having you projected as a 9-8 team. Third place, we got the Miami Dolphins. So it looks like, according to the books, the Dolphins are going to be stuck in the realm of mid this year. Hopefully Tua stays healthy, and I'm sure that's a big factor in this 8-9 record that they've predicted for the New York Jets. I'm sorry, Jets fans. If things go this way, that means Justin Fields' experiment probably did not work, and you're in for another top 10 draft pick. Next, we move on to the AFC South. We got the Houston Texans at 9-8. This division is pretty weak unless CJ Stroud bounces back to what he looked like his rookie year, and this Texans team really figures it out. And this starts at the O-line. That O-line was atrocious last year, and they're going to need that O-line to protect CJ Stroud. And then two, another one that surprised me was the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't doubt that they can go 8-9 with Liam Cohen coming in, because he proved he can run a really solid offense over there in Tampa Bay. But this requires T-Law to look like the T-Law that they drafted him to be and bounce back. Obviously, Travis Hunter's coming in, big game changer there. But in all reality, this defense is still pretty weak on paper. But if this offense can get it going, T-Law can stay healthy, and Travis Hunter makes a real difference for this team. And Liam Cohen's just that offensive-minded head coach they brought him to be and pans out. This team could win at least 7 games, in my opinion, in a weak division, like I said. Next, at number 3, we got the Colts. They also finished with an 8-9 season according to the books. So the big question here is AR. Is he the quarterback of the future? Are we going to see him bounce back, or is he kind of cooked? So we'll find out there. And then we got the Tennessee Titans at 6-11. I think that's pretty respectable considering they're in full rebuild mode right now. And this year is really just to get Cam Ward accustomed to the NFL and just make sure he stays healthy and they can keep building off him. So again, super competitive division, like not a good division, but it's going to be a competitive one. And you never know, man. If the Texans don't look good, the Jags or Colts, I'm not going to go as far and say the Titans, but I think the Jags and Colts could maybe surprise people and win this division and punch their ticket to the playoffs. So now we got the AFC West. So we got the Kansas City Chiefs. No surprise here. I mean, as a non-Kansas City Chiefs fan and just an NFL guy, I hope someone else wins this division, but I think it's pretty unlikely, barring any injuries. And then 2, we got the Denver Broncos. We saw them make the playoffs last year. Big jump with Bo Nix, and they've gotten better this offseason. I think they had a really good draft. Their run game's going to be better with R.J. Harvey coming in, and they patched some holes on defense, and this secondary is going to be really scary. We'll see what happens next year with Denver, but I definitely expect them to be a playoff team, and so does Vegas. 3, got the Chargers at 9-8. Respectable record. They were a playoff team too last year, kind of in this range. And Vegas does expect them to make the playoffs with this record, but they don't expect them to make a jump to like a 10 or 12 win team. And then last we got the Raiders. So they have the Raiders being the best 4th place team in the division. That's 7-10. You got Pete Carroll coming in. You got Ashton Genty coming in. And Geno Smith. All 3 of those things are gonna. All 3 of those things factor in the Raiders making a potential 1-2 win jump at the end of 2025. So that's the AFC, and then now we'll move on to the NFC. And NFC North, another competitive division, a team who was a disappointment come playoff time last year. I really thought the Lions were at least going to make it to the NFC Championship last year, but the books have them at 10-7. But they have them winning the NFC North again, so that's a plus point. The Lions have lost Ben Johnson and their defensive coordinator, so we're gonna see how things work. But at the end of the day, Dan's the big man on this team, and this team plays for him, and I think they'll be fine. They have a super talented squad, and Hutchinson's coming back off injury next year, so I definitely expect them to be a playoff team. Next, we have the Green Bay Packers at 9-8. So we'll see what happens here. Green Bay is always a competitive team in that playoff mix. Obviously, Jordan Love's there. You got your quarterback. Hopefully, Matthew Golden can come in and really open the passing game up on a weekly basis for this team and pair that with Josh Jacobs and a pretty solid defense, a pretty suspect cornerback room. They drafted a few guys. We'll see what happens there. But I think there's definitely a lot of potential for this team to be a wild card team come January. Next, we got the Minnesota Vikings, 8-9. I think the Vikings are kind of a wild card. That's why the books have them at about 8 wins. We don't know what J.J. McCarthy's going to look like. They drafted him as their guy last year in the top 10 as their first-round pick. And they're riding it out with him, which I'm glad, because my thinking is you've invested such a high draft pick in this quarterback. You got to see what he's capable of. He's gone 1 year accustomed to the NFL life. I know he was hurt. He wasn't on the field, but I think it's time you throw him in there. I mean, man, your offense in Minnesota just made Sam Darnold look like an MVP candidate. And if you can do that, I think you have everything in place for J.J. McCarthy to succeed if he lives up to that first-round quarterback pedigree. So you got them at 8 and 9. Again, a wild card. This could be a playoff team if everything works out. Could not be if JJ McCarthy busts, but we'll see. That's all speculations. 4, we got the Bears. Another team that I think had a good offseason. They're working towards getting to that playoff, playing playoff games in January. Obviously, bringing Ben Johnson in is huge. I think that is pretty solid draft. Brought in some more weapons on the offense. You'd expect Caleb Williams to take a jump this year and not look like a rookie. Obviously, I think this is another team that is a wild card. I could potentially see this team win 10 games, but I think 7.5, 8.5 win total is really fair from the books for the Bears. So it looks like it's gonna be a really competitive division according to Vegas. And yeah, we'll see what happens there when the season starts in the NFC North. Next, we move on to the NFC East. Pretty memeable division. There was that span where someone new was winning it every year. Obviously, the Eagles have brought some stability to this division. But now with the rise of the Commanders, the Eagles are Super Bowl champions last year, but don't sleep on the Commanders, man. They also had a pretty solid offseason, adding to an already talented team. And Jaden Daniels was only a rookie last year. So with that being said, you got the Eagles at 1. No surprise here. They won the Super Bowl last year. Vegas is not going to play around here and give them a lower win total or Super Bowl odds. They deservingly so are the winners of the NFC East according to the sportsbooks. 2, we got the Commanders. Again, a team that's on the rise. They're only one win behind the Eagles according to Vegas, which makes sense. I'd expect them to be right there. And then 3, we got the Cowboys. So sorry, Cowboys fans. Vegas is not high on you guys at 7-10. Same record as the Raiders in the AFC West. And I was looking at the Cowboys schedule. It's pretty spread out in terms of competitive, tough games that should be tough compared to games that should be winnable. But it doesn't matter about the schedule or nothing with the Cowboys. All it comes down to is what Cowboys team is going to show up. I thought they had an A+ draft. I did a video recapping every team's draft and handing out grades. I gave them an A+. I thought, Ezaraku in the second round was a steal in my opinion. Will Johnson in the third round was a steal in my opinion. And, was Siobhan Revel in the third round. I know he had that ACL concern at ECU, but steal in the third round. So I do think this team had a really good draft. And it all comes down again. Is Dak Prescott going to be healthy? Is this offense going to be less one-dimensional than just throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb? Is this run game going to look better with you bringing in Blue from the draft and you brought in Javonte Williams this offseason? So we'll see what happens here. 7-10 is they expect them to be mid. We could see this team maybe go 9-8, maybe 10-7 if all things pan out, but I just don't think the Cowboys are as scary as they used to be even 2 or 3 years ago. And then no surprise here. You got the New York Giants here at 4 in the NFC East at 5-12. So Vegas is pretty low on them. And I don't really know what's going on. I don't expect the Giants to be good this year. You have a goofy quarterback room to begin with. I think they had a pretty solid draft. You brought in the right guys. I don't hate the fact they brought in Jackson Dart at the end of the first round. I'm glad they brought in Abdul Carter, didn't reach for a quarterback there. And, it's going to be an interesting season for this team. I think if they win 6-7 games, that's a step in the right direction. We'll see if Dable still has the job on this team after the year. And if this team has a 5-win or lower season, I think they just clean house. But, hey, we'll see what happens there. So that's the NFC East. We move on to the NFC South. This is another division Vegas expects to be competitive, like the AFC South. So they got the Bucs winning this division at 9-8. The Bucs have won this division 3 straight years. No surprise. Baker's looked great. They've had the offense. They've had the coaches. The defense has been solid. I think they had a pretty solid draft looking at the guys they brought in, patching up some of those holes, bringing some youth on defense. This receiver room is still really scary. Bucky Irving emerging last year has been huge for this team. You got a true RB1 there. Obviously, Kadon. This team is just really complete. I do expect them to win the NFC South, even as a Panthers fan. But this division is not that strong. Like I said, just like the AFC South. And considering these teams play each other half the year, we could see some upsets in this division and maybe a team outside of Tampa Bay making it out. So then Vegas has the Falcons at 7-10. I honestly thought this was kind of low. I would put the Falcons at least 8 or 9. This team's defense is pretty stacked on paper. You have a pretty solid offense. It just comes down to, is Penix going to be that guy this year? Are they going to have to revert back to Kirk Cousins? We know that was kind of a failure last year. And in a weak division, I do think 7-10 is pretty low for this Falcons team, but that's what the books have them at. And at 3, we got another team at 7-10, the Carolina Panthers. So Vegas does expect them to be a win or two better than last year. And at 7-10, according to the sports books, that means they're competitive for the division. The Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers play each other twice within the last 3 weeks of the year. So if we come down to December entering January, and both these teams are only separated by one win, we're going to see some interesting football in the NFC South, because those games are going to be huge for one of these teams to make the playoffs. So we got the Panthers and Falcons kind of 7-10, like flip-flopping there. And then no surprise here, again, another pretty bogus team is the New Orleans Saints. Quarterback questions with Derek Carr retiring. You brought in Tyler Shaw. You have Spencer Rattler. But overall, I think this team is pretty weak still. Defense has some guys aging there, kind of suspect. Offense is kind of suspect. Is Olave going to stay healthy? Kamara's kind of, he's getting up there in age. So we'll see what happens here. Yeah, man. I mean, the NFC South's going to be pretty interesting this year. But I see Vegas took the same approach here as the AFC South, kind of like throwing out some numbers and kind of keeping in mind it's going to be a competitive division. And it's a lot of wild cards between these two Southern divisions. All right, and then lastly, moving on to the NFC West. So honestly, another surprise for me was they're pretty high on the Niners at 10-7, which it shouldn't be that surprising considering this is still a Shanahan team. They were just in the Super Bowl. I know they had a bad year last year, but there was a lot of injuries. Brock Purdy just got that fat extension. He's their guy for the next 5 years, at least. Kittle got the fat extension. Is McCaffrey going to stay healthy? I think that's obviously a big question mark. That guy would be a key contributor to any team. I mean, he just opens up the game in a different way. So we'll see. The Niners didn't have as good of a draft as I'd hope they would have had, patching up some of the holes on defense, but hey, I'm not working in that front office. I'm not a head coach on that team or a coach in general, so I'll trust them. I mean, they're a pretty well-ran organization. And then at second, we got the Rams. They also have the Rams at 10-7. So both these teams are expected to be playoff teams. No surprise. Again, another really, really well-ran team under McVay and that front office. This could be Stafford's last year, or at most, I think he's got 2 more years, but This is pretty good for the Rams. And don't forget, the Rams added an additional first-round pick in next year's draft by trading with the Falcons. So if Stafford kind of flames out this year or retires after this year, the Rams have 2 first-round picks to play with to maybe trade up and grab a quarterback in what should be a really stacked quarterback class. And then third place, we got the Seattle Seahawks at 8-9. A lot of moving pieces here. Traded away DK Metcalf. You got Sam Darnold coming in. I think the Seahawks had a phenomenal draft. I think 8-9 is a perfect place for Vegas to put their win total at. Could be above 8 wins, could be lower than 8 wins. But I think, again, that 7-10, 8-9 predictions, like Vegas kind of covering their ends, where they're just expecting them to go either way, either be above mid or below mid. They don't expect them to be a contender. They don't expect them to be a bottom feeder. So 8-9, I think, is really fair for the Seahawks. And then again, another team at 8-9 is the Cardinals. So this division, according to these win totals, should be pretty competitive. The Cardinals, I think it's all going to come down to obviously Kyler Murray. Can he be consistent and take advantage of guys like Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr.? And they had a pretty good draft on the defense, I thought, bringing guys like Will Johnson. So hopefully this defensive draft class that got coming in with obviously Walter Nolan too comes in and, anchors this team. So that's what we got for the NFC West. So that's what Vegas thinks these divisions are going to play out as. Do you agree? Do you think they're too low on any of these teams, too high on any of these win totals? Are you happy with what they gave your team? And again, like no one knows what's going to happen. All these projections and predictions go out the window come start of the season when some teams take that next step, injuries, some teams just like fade away. So we'll see what happens there. But this gives us a good idea of how sports books or gives us a good idea of what we should expect, at least in the ballpark. So the next one we go on season awards. So they have the MVP being Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson picks up another MVP, and that's not surprising considering they have the Ravens being 11-6. That definitely means Lamar Jackson's putting on video game numbers again. And for the runner-ups, they got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Again, quarterbacks, no surprise there. They're expecting these three guys to just put up numbers in the AFC, and the Bengals defense could still be pretty trash. And if that's the case, Joe Burrow is going to be slinging the rock a lot and going to be putting up MVP numbers. And honestly, my take is if the Bengals defense looks decent, if the Bengals put up 11, 12 wins and Joe Burrow's still putting up numbers like last year, I think the MVP award is going to be his. But we'll see. We'll see how the Bengals team looks this year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ashton Genty. No surprise here. I mean, taking 6th overall the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to definitely feed him the ball a lot. I don't think they're going to want Geno to be slinging the ball out. I mean, you got like Brock Bowers, obviously, who's going to get the ball a lot. And that receiving room is still pretty questionable. You got some new young guys in there. We'll see how they pan out. But when you bring in a workhorse back like Genty and Pete Carroll coming in, who's been known to like to run the ball, I think we'll definitely see Ashton Genty put up numbers that could win him that Offensive Rookie of the Year award. So for runner-ups, Cam Ward, makes sense. 1st overall pick, obviously, quarterback. And then you got Travis Hunter. So if Travis Hunter is primarily playing receiver and just looking like the Heisman Trophy winner he was, I mean, there's no reason why he can't win that Offensive Rookie of the Year award, especially if he's just standing out on the field. I should mention Amarian Hampton was right there in the odds, and then behind him was T-Mac McMillan. Next, we go to the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is like plus 250. Everyone after that's like plus 1,000 and longer. So Abdul Carter is the clear favorite, and no surprise there. I mean, he was taken the 3rd in this year's draft. So runner-ups, Jalen Walker was 2nd, and then Travis Hunter. So you got Travis Hunter as a runner-up for Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. And now that would be something. It would be something if Travis Hunter won both Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. If he did that, the NFL is a problem because that's just a new breed of athletes coming in the league. Guys who play both positions. And for him to win both Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year, that would mean that he's on the field a lot on both sides, which I realistically don't see happening. I see him mostly lining up at receiver and coming in for sets on the defense, but we'll see what happens there. A lot of speculation there. It'll be really, really fun to see what Travis Hunter does when it comes to down to September and October and all that. Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley. The books have Saquon being the leading rusher next year. I mean, behind that offensive line, behind what we saw last year on that offense, no surprise. I could definitely see Saquon putting up some crazy numbers and taking home that trophy. Runner-ups, Jamar Chase, Triple Crown winner last year. Again, with the Joe Burrow thing, if this team's just slinging the rock a lot, Jamar's going to put up crazy numbers. Jahmyr Gibbs was 3rd. I like that. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs took a big step last year, and when David Montgomery went down, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs put up even better numbers. So, cool with those 3 guys. But Offensive Player of the Year is always kind of like a toss-up before entering the year. I mean, we could see Jettas here. If McCaffrey's healthy, we could see McCaffrey. We could see Derrick Henry. There's a lot that could happen here. I mean, guys just emerge and take home that award. Defensive Player of the Year, we got Aiden Hutchinson. So Aiden Hutchinson's going to be coming back from injury. And, I mean, he is one of the best edges in the league. And now that the Lions kind of beefed up this D-line more, it should open up his side of the D-line to get to the quarterback more. And then for the runner-ups, you got Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett. No surprise seeing Myles Garrett on here. He's been in that conversation for the last whatever many years. He's that guy. Micah Parsons, if the Cowboys have a good year, I could see him taking home the Defensive Player of the Year, depending on how these other guys do. Coach of the Year, Micah Vrabel. So, like we said earlier, Patriots expected to go 9-8. If they go 9-8, Mike Vrabel, I mean, he earns that Coach of the Year award. Coming in a team that was really, really bad last year, still not the strongest roster, but definitely took a step up. And yeah, I mean, 9-8 commands a Coach of the Year award, in my opinion. And then next we have Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen. So interestingly enough, all three of these candidates are all new coaches to their teams. Ben Johnson coming to Chicago, Liam Cohen coming to Jacksonville. So I think my analysis here on Vegas's odds assigned to these guys is that they're basing this on new coaches coming into teams that were bad last year and taking them to the playoffs and further. So I think these guys definitely warrant those higher odds compared to some of the more established coaches in the league. Just considering it's going to be a big storyline again. If these guys come in who these guys were coaches that teams wanted, like teams were going over each other's heads for Ben Johnson. Liam Cohen was a great hire for the Jags. So if these guys come in and do something like the Commanders did last year, bad team, go to the playoffs, one of these coaches could definitely win the Coach of the Year award. So that's all the awards now. So we've gone through the divisions, through the win totals, through the awards, and now we go down to the final part of the year, the NFL playoffs. So let's find out if Vegas expects this to be all chalk or if they expect some upsets. Are we going to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again? Are we going to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl again? Let's find out. So we'll start here with the AFC. The first seed is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, they have the best record in the league according to Vegas at 12-5. So Bills Mafia, man, you got some more hope this year if you're the 1 seed, obviously. You got some quarterbacks you got to beat to make it to the Super Bowl, but there's hope. There's hope. And then the 1 seed in the NFC is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, they got them at 11-6, best record in the NFC. No surprise they got them as a 1 seed, kind of like what I touched on earlier. They were the Super Bowl winners last year. They're going to have them here at the top when they're doing their projections. And then next, we're going to go down through 2 through 7 in the AFC, see who's expected to make the playoffs. So we got the Ravens at 2 with an 11-6 record. Really good season for them. But now it's hard that bye week means a lot more now with one team getting it. So you could win 11, 12 games, maybe even 13 and not get that 1 seed. It's crazy. 3, you got the Kansas City Chiefs. They're right there with 11-6 record. They win their division. And then the unfortunate truth for teams that win 10 to 12 games is you're not guaranteed that 4 seed because a team like the Texans with a 9-8 record is going to get that home field advantage in the wild card round. And that's what happens. There is a reason teams winning the division is so prized, especially in these worst divisions, because you get that home field advantage in the wild card round. So Texans punched their ticket in there as the home team in that last wild card game. And then with the 5th seed, you've got the Denver Broncos. So they'd be matched up with the Texans in Houston. And then at the 6th seed, you got the Bengals. Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes in the first round. This would be a banger. I could see. I don't want to speculate. It's still a year away, but this could be a high-scoring game. And, man, there's a legacy at stake here, especially for Joe Burrow. And we know Joe Burrow's the one quarterback in this conference that's taken down Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Can he do it again? I would love to see the Bengals get another shot at the Super Bowl, but it is not an easy task. And then the last wildcard team in this conference is the LA Chargers. Definitely at a 9-8 record, definitely as a Patriots fan, you're kind of missing out there with a 9-8 record, but Vegas has the Chargers with a higher likelihood of making the playoffs over the Patriots. And as a 9-8 team, that means there's teams like the Jags, Colts, Dolphins, Patriots, and Steelers that could all only be 1 or 2 wins off from being that last wildcard team. So that's what the wildcard stage would look like in the AFC. And now we're going to move on to the wildcard stage in the NFC. So number 2, San Francisco 49ers, winning that division. Them and the Rams both have the 10-7 record, but according to Vegas, they got the Niners with the edge of actually winning the division here. And then the 3rd seed would be the Detroit Lions at 10-7. So yeah, again, they win their division, 1 more win than the Packers. And they look to make that, hopefully make it to the Super Bowl in the 2025 playoffs. And it was just unfortunate for him. It was really cool to see the Commanders win, but that Commanders team was hot, and it was a tough one. I'm not going to linger on that one for you Lions fans. At 4, again, like the AFC South, you win the division, you get home field advantage in the wild card. Wild card round, you punch your ticket in the playoffs, and that's what happens with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at 9-8. So they'll play the Washington Commanders if this is how the season unfolds in Tampa Bay. That should be an interesting, both pretty high-powered offenses, and we should see some fun football there for sure. Then you got the Rams. The Rams coming in at 10-7, playing the 10-7 Lions. Another banger matchup here. I mean, both of these teams could be Super Bowl contenders. I never discount a team with Sean McVay because that guy knows how to win. The Rams have won a Super Bowl. I think this team got better this offseason, so that's that. And then you got the Green Bay Packers going to San Francisco to play the Niners. So that's what the NFC wildcard stage would look like. A lot of banger matchups on both sides if this is how the season ended and this is how the playoffs were set. Obviously, again, I'm going to touch on it again. Vegas doesn't account for teams that could make that jump and be a wildcard team like the Commanders last year. I feel like every year there's a team or two. Like I would put a lot of money. I don't remember, but the Broncos win total last year had to be like 7 or 8. It couldn't have been more than that. The Commanders are probably at like 8. So like there's teams that surprise people, and there's teams on this list that are in the playoffs that might not even make the playoffs. You never know with injuries and things. But this is what we're looking at based on the lines and Vegas. So now we'll move on to the divisional round, and we'll go back to the AFC. So Chargers, Ravens, who does Vegas think is going to win this game and make it to the next round? So no surprise, they got the Ravens. Ravens don't have to play the Bills. They'll play the second lowest seed that makes it out in the wild card round. And then next we got the Bengals and the Chiefs. So unfortunately, there's no surprise here. I mean, Vegas is going to take the Chiefs over the Bengals. Would love to see the Bengals make it out here, like I said earlier, but they're not going to fade the Chiefs. They're going to have the Chiefs making it deep, obviously. So Chiefs, Ravens, Lamar's got to face Mahomes again. I'm sure Josh Allen's letting out a huge sigh of relief if this happens. But again, I know competitive player, definitely wants to get his revenge there. And then we got the Broncos beating the Texans to face the Bills. So that's what the divisional round would look like in the AFC. Broncos, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. Ravens, Chiefs would be, I'm sure, labeled as game of the year once it comes down to the playoffs and all that. And then we go in the NFC. So they got the Niners beating the Packers. Makes sense, Niners playing at home. If the Niners are 10-7, I'd expect them to be a strong team and healthy, and Purdy doing Purdy things, and Shanahan just leading this team to the promised land. And then next we got the Lions beating the Rams. So I think that's a game that could go either way. I mean, both these teams again 10-7 according to Vegas, and this is also Stafford coming and playing in Detroit. So that storyline, I mean, he's done that a few times already, but it's always a fun one to follow. So in the last game here, you got the Commanders beating the Bucks. So on both sides, both 5 seeds beat the weaker 4 seeds, even though they have home field advantage. And then this sets up the stage for the divisional round. So you got the Commanders and Eagles inter-division matchup there with teams that were only separated by 1 win in the regular season. And then you got the Lions and the Niners, both 10-7 teams. So now we'll hop back to the AFC. We'll figure out who makes it to the AFC Championship. And we'll start with the Broncos and Bills. So they got the Buffalo Bills. I don't think, no surprise there. I mean, if the Bills are supposed to be the 1 seed in the AFC, you would expect them to make it to the AFC Championship based on analytics. So you got the Bills there. And then Ravens, Chiefs. I'm going to give you guys 3 seconds. Who do you guys think Vegas picked here? To my surprise, they took the Ravens, so I guess they just went with the higher seed. I would have, just for the Mahomes factor and the fact that the Chiefs won the AFC last year, I would have expected the Chiefs to be favorites to be in the AFC, but they actually have the Bills and the Ravens at the same odds to make it at the AFC, with them 2 being the highest odds at plus 550, I believe, or plus 500. So that sets us up for 2 teams with both teams with quarterbacks who I think most fans outside of these two teams would like to see either one of them go to the Super Bowl and win it for sure. Both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been knocking on that door for a while and just haven't been able to get past Mahomes. But here, Mahomes is knocked out, and one of these guys has a chance to go and get that Lombardi trophy. Now we go on to the AFC, or back to the NFC, sorry. And in the NFC, we got the Eagles beating the Commanders. So the Eagles are back, almost back, with a shot to winning another Lombardi trophy and potentially turning into a dynasty here. And then Lions, Niners, we get the Lions. So the Lions take down the higher seed Niners, and they kind of do what we expected them to do last year and make it to the NFC Championship. So we got some bangers here. We got the Bills, Ravens. We got the Lions, Eagles. And as a, again, casual fan that's not a part of any of these fan bases, I think we'd like to see the Lions play to the Bills or Ravens. Eagles got their Super Bowl last year. They've kind of gotten their, Philly's already kind of hateable. I don't hate them. I think this Eagles team's actually pretty likable. I like Jalen Hurts. I like A.J. Brown. I like this team in general. Like, they're not a hateable Eagles team, but we want to see some other guys get a chance, and we'll see what Vegas thinks. So now we go on to back to the AFC. Who does Vegas have making out the AFC? So again, like I said, Vegas and the betting and the sports books have the Bills and Ravens with the same odds. So I thought it was only fair here to flip a coin. I gave heads to the Ravens and tails to the Bills. And whatever it landed on, I was going to put them in the Super Bowl because I'm not going to pick. These aren't my predictions. This is all based on the sports books and analytics and all that. So I feel like it's only fair we did a coin toss. And with that coin toss, we see the Ravens making it to the Super Bowl over the 1 seed Bills. And then for the NFC, again, probably not a surprise here, but we got the Eagles. So we got the Eagles, Ravens, two of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL facing off in the Super Bowl. We got MVP 2025, projected MVP Lamar Jackson going up against 2025 projected Offensive Player of the Year in Saquon Barkley. So who does Vegas have winning the Super Bowl in 2025? And that answer is... One second, I pressed the wrong button. The Philadelphia Eagles. All that just to say the Eagles repeat in the Super Bowl, back-to-back champions. So again, I know I've harped on this, but Vegas is going to back the team that was the best team in the league last year. They're not going to throw them at like plus 700 odds to win the Super Bowl because they didn't lose guys. They lost Josh Sweat and a couple guys on the defense, but they had a phenomenal draft. People fell to the Eagles team that should have not fell to this Eagles team, like Giad Campbell, home run pick. I could just go down the list, but this Eagles team is poised for sure, barring any injuries, to make another run for that Super Bowl. And yeah, according to Vegas, according to their script, they got the Eagles beating the Ravens or the Bills in the Super Bowl. But with that coin flip, we got Eagles, Ravens, and the Eagles coming out on top. So what do you guys think? I had a lot of fun doing this video. It was really interesting to see what the lines think of what teams are going to be looking like this year. There's a couple things in there that I just don't agree with. And I think I'm going to make a separate video on some betting lines I think you guys as the public could take advantage of with win totals and potential sleepers for award winners and potential sleepers for who could win the division, finish second place in the division and all that. So I'm going to formulate a whole list and drop another video for that. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? What do you guys agree with here? What do you guys disagree with? And don't come at me. These are not my predictions. If anything, write all your comments to DraftKings and FanDuel and whatever other sports books. But yeah, I'll catch y'all soon. Thanks for tuning in.